Why NoFap is dangerous. I just want to preface this video by saying that this is not another cons video like the ones that I've made in the past. Now, while there might be some overlap between those videos and this video includes insight from the perspective of having relapsed on NoFap after 9 months. But the first thing that I think is toxic in regards to NoFap and the NoFap community is that feeling of guilt that you get after relapsing. Now, me personally, before I started NoFap, before I even knew what NoFap was, I never got that guilt. Okay, that guilt that people talk about where, you know, they hate themselves right after releasing, things like that. That never happened to me. Okay, I did not know that that was a thing. In my mind, I just assumed that everyone else was doing it, so there was no reason to feel guilty. And in retrospect, that logic was pretty sound. You know, there's nothing inherently wrong with beating your meat, because at the end of the day, your body won't know the difference between that and, you know, participating in an act of intimacy with a significant other. But I feel like once you've invested in the conditioning that comes with doing NoFap, and especially putting your journey out there for thousands and thousands of people to see, you start to look at things a little bit differently. So a few weeks ago, I made a video talking about why I quit NoFap, and by the time I uploaded that video, I had already relapsed. When I made that video, I didn't really feel any guilt for that, but after reading some of the comments and seeing the level of influence that I actually had within the NoFap community, I started to feel terrible, which, like I said, that's not really justified. You know, it's not warranted for me to feel bad about myself for doing something that I am made to do. Of course, in moderation, but I shouldn't feel guilty for releasing. I shouldn't feel like less of a person, less of a man for releasing. And I feel like that's something that is very prevalent in the NoFap community. You know, a lot of people email me or comment on my videos telling me that they relapsed and they feel terrible. They feel terrible about themselves. They had a good streak going and they threw it all away within a matter of a few minutes. And to an extent, that feeling can be justified in that sense. You know, you're kind of throwing away potentially months worth of work, but at the same time, like I said, it's natural. You know, it's natural. It's not something that you should be ashamed of. You shouldn't feel ashamed for releasing. The shame should come from the fact that you went against your discipline. Okay, you relapsed in terms of your mindset, not your body. Okay, it's not about your body, it's about your mind. NoFap is about conditioning your mind to think a certain way, which will then influence your actions and increase your chances of success. You know, because you'll be more disciplined, you'll be more confident, you'll have more energy. And I've made many videos in the past about the benefits of NoFap, but I feel like a lot of people take these benefits and they kind of begin to identify with NoFap as a result. You know, they feel like NoFap is the holy grail of self-development, which it is very impactful, and I'm living proof of that. But at the same time, you should not place your self-perception into any aspect of your self-development journey, including and especially NoFap. Like I said, in my particular case, after relapsing and reading a lot of the comments and realizing that I failed not only myself, but I failed thousands of people, it began to change my perception of myself a little bit. And I noticed that my discipline began to slip in other areas as a result. You know, because I relapsed on NoFap 1 or 2 times, all of a sudden I felt like a failure. I started sleeping in, I started eating less healthy, I started slacking in terms of YouTube, in terms of reading, procrastinating, things like that. You know, I was just falling apart in a sense. But luckily I had the self-awareness to see this and understand where it was coming from. You know, it was coming from the negative self-talk that dominated my subconscious mind from the conditioning that I received from doing NoFap. It created a domino effect, and NoFap was that first domino that got knocked over. And this wouldn't be possible had I not developed such an attachment to NoFap. Now, obviously, it's difficult to not develop an attachment to something like this if you've been doing it for 9 months, and on top of that, you've built a large part of your identity on the internet as a result of that journey. But what you have to understand is that most of that is in your own head. Okay, it is in your mind. You are convincing yourself that NoFap is the only reason why you are successful. Then as a result, when you finally do relapse, no matter how long it's been, you feel like a failure. And I definitely felt that. Okay, I felt that feeling from within, and it was a terrible feeling. But I realized that it was because of that attachment that I had, that a lot of you guys watching this probably have as well, whether at the subconscious or conscious level. What you have to understand is that if you allow yourself to buy into that conditioning and believe that NoFap is basically the only reason why you're successful or why you've gotten as far as you have. You are literally manifesting misery into your life. You are manifesting a mindset of misery, which will translate into actions that perpetuate that mindset. Like I said, in my case, I started sleeping in, I started slacking off when it came to my diet. All of that began to fall apart because of 1 or 2 relapses on NoFap. After 9 months, okay, I went 9 months of doing NoFap. And then the moment I decided to quit, all of a sudden I feel like a failure. And that's not right. That's not healthy, okay? There's nothing healthy about that. That is a toxic relationship with something that is supposed to do more good than harm. NoFap will help you become more successful because, like I said, it will instill within you traits that are necessary for success. But what you have to understand is that NoFap is not the only potential source of these traits. You do not need NoFap to be successful, but it will help you. But you have to have the level of self-awareness and understanding of your mind and your body to not develop too much of an attachment to it. Because if you place all of your stock into NoFap, you're setting yourself up for failure. Another reason why NoFap can be dangerous is because it can throw off your desire for physical intimacy. Like I said in my video talking about why I quit NoFap, when I finally got the opportunity to, release in the way that I wanted to, I had trouble getting it up. And that persisted for a little while because my body was no longer used to the feeling of releasing. If you don't use it, you lose it. Now, for some people, it may take less time than it took me. For others, it might take longer than it took me. But at that 9-month mark, I realized that my libido was way, way lower than it was before. The urges were going away, and that's why NoFap was becoming easier and easier for me over time. My body slowly accepted the fact that I was not going to be releasing anytime soon, and as a result, it basically went into shutdown mode. And of course, performance anxiety was a part of that. But when I eventually did relapse on NoFap, I still had trouble getting it up. So if it's happening when you're alone, it's just you and your thoughts and that physical sensation, and you still have trouble getting it up, that indicates a much deeper issue. That indicates a level of mental conditioning that can only be achieved by doing something like NoFap. Now, with all that being said, I am back on NoFap. Even though NoFap can be toxic, I have a broader perspective from my previous experience to where I feel like I can have a healthier relationship with it, especially since I'm in a relationship with somebody and, I can participate in that act in that way instead. And also, I don't want you guys to see me quitting NoFap and think that you should do the same thing. Because for me, it was just a product of my circumstance. If you find yourself in that same circumstance, then you should quit NoFap. Otherwise, you should stay on it because, like I said, it did much more good than it did bad for me.